Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture yourself sitting in a luxurious, ultra-modern skyscraper.
Okay, I'm with you. And hi, everyone. I'm your resident expert. Glad to be here. So, a skyscraper. We're talking high end.
Exactly, high end. You are on the penthouse floor looking out over a glittering skyline. You're surrounded by every conceivable material comfort. I mean, the climate control is perfectly calibrated. There's incredibly expensive art on the walls, high-end furniture.
It sounds like a dream, honestly.
Right. But as you sit there, you feel completely and utterly miserable. There is this cold pit in your stomach because you've just been deeply betrayed by a close friend, or maybe, I don't know, cheated out of everything by a business partner.
Oh, yeah. That is a very specific kind of emptiness. I mean, the contrast between that physical luxury and the internal turmoil, it actually makes the misery feel sharper. You know,
It really does. Now, I want you to take that image and completely flip it. Imagine you're sitting in a modest, maybe even slightly drafty room. The furniture is worn out, the walls are bare, the lighting is harsh.
a totally different vibe.
Totally different, but you feel this deep, unwavering sense of peace, joy, and security because you're sitting across from a fiercely loyal friend or a loving spouse. The physical environment is severely lacking, but you feel completely full.
It's like the environment just fades away entirely. It just ceases to matter.
Exactly. And the reason that modest room feels so much better isn't magic. And it's not just some, romantic cliche. It is a measurable, actionable social mechanism. So today, our mission is to pull apart the mechanics of that exact feeling.
We have a really fascinating text for this today.
We do. We are using chapter 12 of the book Thus Spoke Confucius by philosopher Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily.
It is a remarkable chapter, honestly. Al-Waily isn't just writing about, being a nice person. He is outlining what he considers to be the only true operating system for a functional society.
Right, because his core argument is that the true measure of a civilization isn't its skyline, it isn't its gross domestic product, and it's not its tech sector. It is a concept he calls al-mu'amala.
Which roughly translates to treatment or how we interact and deal with one another.
Yeah, so we are going to extract Al-Waily's ultimate hack for society today. We're looking at practical, philosophical tools for handling conflict, understanding human nature, and knowing exactly when to strategically pretend you didn't notice an insult.
To really grasp al-muamala, we have to start with how al-Waily categorizes human nature. He uses this very deliberate metallurgical metaphor.
Metallurgical metaphor. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so he divides civilization into two distinct layers, work and treatment. And he says these two elements act as a touchstone, revealing the gold and the copper inside every person.
Okay, so the gold would be someone who is entirely pure and good in their dealings with others.
Exactly.
But he points out that pure gold is incredibly rare in any time or place, right?
Exceptionally rare. I mean, he argues that most of us are alloys, like a mix of good and bad traits. But crucially, he warns that a vast number of people walking around are mostly copper.
Mostly copper.
Yeah, they are reactive, self-interested, and they just lack that high moral standard in their daily dealings.
I was thinking about this division between work and treatment. Let me run an analogy by you.
Sure, go for it.
If we look at material civilization, like the factories, the massive universities, the gigabit internet infrastructure, that is the hardware of a computer.
Okay, I like where this is going.
I mean, it's impressive, it has massive processing power, and it's driven by work. But moral civilization, this concept of al-mu'amala, is the operating system.
The OS, right?
Right, and without the OS, I don't care if you have a $50,000 supercomputer, it's just a heavy, useless brick sitting on your desk.
The operating system analogy holds up perfectly, but Al-Waily actually takes it a step further.
Mhm.
He argues that a bad operating system doesn't just render the hardware useless.
What does it do then?
It makes it actively dangerous. Material progress without moral progress creates a terrifying imbalance. You have all this societal power, all this wealth, and absolutely no ethical framework to constrain how it's used against people.
Because it just amplifies the copper in human nature.
Exactly. He uses a brilliant image in the text.
Mm-hmm.
He says that these huge, impressive buildings and towering factories, they're really just garments protecting the body from the weather.
Keeping the rain off.
Right. They keep the rain off your head and the cold out of your bones, but they do absolutely zero to protect your mind from the anxiety, the stress, and the absolute misery caused by toxic social interactions.
Which brings us right back to our opening visualization.
Exactly.
The skyscraper cannot protect you from the pain of a betrayal. The concrete doesn't stop the anxiety.
A society that only focuses on building taller skyscrapers while completely neglecting the operating system of how its citizens treat one another is a society that is fundamentally sick. Al-Waily states that while good work might be the nerve center of the economy, good treatment, good muamala, is the soul of civilization. When a society loses its soul, the body might keep twitching for a while, but it inevitably collapses.
I understand the theory, but how does this actually look when it plays out in the real world? Because it's easy to write, be nice to each other in a philosophy book.
Oh, for sure.
Does he give any concrete examples of what a society running on a perfect muamala operating system actually looks like?
He provides two very stark stories that illustrate the extreme ends of societal standards.
Yeah.
The first one deals with the enforcement of trust.
Okay.
There is a story of a foreign merchant who arrives in a new country, sets up a shop, and gets ready to do business. A customer walks in, and the merchant speaks slightly more than necessary about the quality of his goods.
Okay, so he hypes up his product a bit.
Right. But almost immediately, the merchant is summoned by the local judge.
Oh.
Yeah, and the judge issues a devastating ruling. The merchant is given exactly 1 week to liquidate his entire inventory, pack up his life, and leave the country forever.
Wait, what? A total deportation order?
A total deportation order.
I have to stop you there because that sounds completely unhinged. A guy gets deported just for being a little too salesy.
I know, it sounds crazy.
In our modern world, overpromising is basically the foundation of advertising. If we deported people for exaggerating a product's benefits, every marketing department on Earth would be empty.
You're not wrong.
How does that extreme reaction make any sense?
It sounds incredibly harsh. But what is fascinating here is that Al-Waily is using it to highlight a massive invisible tax that we all pay. Societal friction.
Societal friction, okay.
Think about what happens when you introduce just a tiny bit of exaggeration, a little bit of copper, into a marketplace.
Well, people stop taking claims at face value.
And when they stop believing, trust fractures. Suddenly, a simple transaction becomes a complex negotiation.
Right, you have to hire lawyers, you have to write 50-page contracts.
Exactly. You have to buy insurance, you need consumer protection bureaus, and endless third-party reviews. All of that is friction.
That makes a lot of sense.
The judge in that story wasn't just punishing a man for talking too much. He recognized that the merchant was introducing a microfracture into the community's trust.
Wow.
If people begin to accept that it's okay to bend the truth for profit, even slightly, the friction in that society skyrockets.
So, by eliminating the guy who exaggerated, they are protecting the efficiency of the entire economy. It's a zero-tolerance policy for copper.
Exactly.
That actually makes the second story he tells make a lot more sense.
The story about the wallet in the cafe.
Yes. He describes a person who leaves their wallet sitting on a table in an upscale cafe. And they don't just step away to the restroom.
No, they actually travel abroad.
Right. They leave the country, return days later, walk back into that exact same cafe, and find the wallet sitting exactly where they left it, completely untouched.
That is the inverse of the merchant's story. That is the visualization of what a society looks like when the friction of distrust is entirely removed.
It sounds like an absolute utopia. You wouldn't need locks on your doors. You wouldn't need security cameras.
You wouldn't need a massive legal apparatus to police every interaction. The author is deeply pragmatic here.
How so?
Well, he is arguing that fixing local politics, stabilizing global conflicts, and even emptying out prisons and hospitals, all of these massive, overwhelming systemic issues, they do not get solved from the top down.
They start from the bottom.
They start with these tiny, everyday interactions. When people trust each other implicitly and treat each other with profound respect, the massive societal frictions just evaporate.
That is incredible.
The mental health of the population improves so dramatically that hospitals are less burdened. It is a radical ripple effect.
I love that vision. A frictionless society where I can leave my laptop on a park bench and no one touches it.
It's a nice thought.
But let's bring this back down to reality for a second. Let's say I buy into this entirely. I step out my front door, fully intending to be pure gold.
Good luck with that.
Right, and I inevitably encounter someone who didn't read Chapter 12. Someone cuts me off in traffic, or a coworker actively tries to throw me under the bus.
It's bound to happen.
How do we deal with the copper? Because if the world is full of it, how do we handle people who are ignorant or aggressively hostile?
This is where Al-Waily's framework requires a massive amount of personal discipline. He uses a brilliant medical analogy.
Okay.
He says that meeting ignorance with ignorance, or meeting aggression with aggression, is like a doctor trying to cure a patient by intentionally infecting themselves with the exact same disease.
Oh, wow. So if someone is screaming at you and you start screaming back to assert dominance, you haven't fixed the problem.
Not at all.
You've just doubled the amount of disease in the room.
You've caught the virus. You are now both sick. The author argues that you cannot fight fire with fire. You have to fight fire with water.
Right.
And he offers very specific restorative prescriptions for this. You don't just use a generalized be nice approach. You target the specific deficiency in the other person.
Give me an example of how that works.
Well, if someone is acting out of pure ignorance, you don't mock them. You cure it with knowledge.
Okay.
If someone is making you feel deeply disrespected, you cure that feeling by showing them profound respect. And if you feel a sense of injustice, you cure it by applying absolute fairness to the situation.
Okay, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Curing disrespect with respect sounds beautiful if you were living in a secluded monastery.
Fair.
But realistically, think about you, the listener, sitting in a cutthroat corporate office right now. If a saboteur is actively trying to undermine your career and you respond by bowing and showing them profound respect, that just gets you fired.
It's a valid concern.
Doesn't that just make you a target?
It seems that way, but you have to look at the underlying psychological strategy Al-Waily is deploying. He isn't suggesting you become subservient.
Okay, what is the strategy then?
The goal of showing respect to the disrespectful person is actually highly strategic. The ultimate aim is to elevate the good people in society,
Elevate them how?
to give them the respect, the high positions, the visibility, so that the bad people, the copper,
Yeah.
realize that their aggressive tactics are not working.
Oh, I see. So you change the currency of success. You make it so that if they want to get ahead, they have to abandon the hostility and start acting like you.
Exactly. Even if they're just faking it at first purely out of self-interest, Al-Waily argues that imitating good becomes half of goodness.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. It becomes a habit, and eventually the habit transforms the character. And there was another crucial layer here regarding your own internal state, which is intention.
Right. What happens when you try to apply the water to the fire, but you just mess it up? Like you lose your temper despite your best efforts.
The text highlights that intending good but failing is still a net positive for your moral standing. Yeah, he compares it to a person who is strictly fasting for religious reasons, but they walk into the kitchen and absent-mindedly drink a glass of water because they forgot.
Oh, because it was an accident.
Right, they aren't punished for the mistake because the intention was pure. The effort matters just as much as the flawless execution.
Okay, but this leads us directly to a crucial boundary. I want you to really think about this. If we are supposed to be infinitely compassionate and show respect to people who disrespect us and trust that our good intentions are enough,
Yeah.
does that mean al-mu'amala requires us to be doormats?
Absolutely not.
Do we just let truly toxic people walk all over us in the name of moral superiority?
No, and this is where many people misunderstand these kinds of philosophical texts. Al-Waily draws a very sharp, very stark line to protect against exactly what you were describing.
Okay, what is the line?
He introduces a vivid contrast between two Arabic concepts, ambition, which he calls tamu, and greed, which is tama.
I really want to anchor these terms because the imagery he uses is fantastic.
It really is.
He describes ambition, Tamu, as a double good. It is the natural, healthy act of seeking to elevate yourself, to improve your career or your life, but doing so strictly without harming anyone else's rights.
Right.
He says someone driven by ambition is walking on a brightly lit, blooming path.
It is constructive growth. Greed, tama on the other hand, is a double bad.
A double bad.
Yeah. Greed isn't just wanting more. It is the act of crossing boundaries. It is stepping on others and stealing their rights to elevate yourself.
Oh.
And the person driven by greed, he says, is walking in a dark, thorny desert. They might make short-term gains, but they are constantly surrounded by hostility and danger, tearing themselves apart on the thorns.
So what does this all mean? We are walking on our lit path, minding our business, and someone wanders out of that thorny desert and tries to drag us in. They mistake our forgiveness for weakness.
Right.
The author does not say just keep smiling. He outlines a very strict 4-step escalation protocol for dealing with them.
And this protocol is entirely based on cold, calculated logic, not emotion.
I mean, let's be real. It's hard not to be emotional.
Oh, for sure. But if you let anger dictate your response to a toxic person, you risk becoming a monster yourself. You catch the disease.
Okay, let's walk through these steps. I want you, listening right now, to picture that one highly toxic person in your life, a coworker, a neighbor, a family member.
We all have one.
Step one is mediation. You bring in good, neutral people to try and resolve the issue peacefully.
You attempt to restore harmony without direct aggressive confrontation. You give them an off-ramp.
But let's say they ignore the mediators. They double down and threaten you. You move to step two, which is complaining to the authorities.
Right, you use the systems, the HR departments, the legal frameworks that are in place. You escalate, but you do it formally and legally. You do not take it into your own hands yet.
If the authorities can't help, or the system is broken, step three is total avoidance. Complete distancing.
Yes.
Like you cut them out of your life entirely. You block the number, you change departments, you starve the fire of oxygen.
You remove their access to your energy entirely.
And finally, step four. If you are absolutely cornered...
This is the last resort.
Right. If you cannot escape, you cannot avoid them, and they are actively coming for you to cause harm, the author permits direct retaliation.
But there is a massive condition attached to this.
Right. It must be done strictly without committing injustice yourself and without going overboard.
This is why the reliance on logic is vital. Applying logic to a conflict shows you exactly how much energy to expend to neutralize the threat, and not an ounce more.
That makes sense.
It keeps your response measured, justified, and clean. You defend yourself, but you do not burn down the village in the process.
That is such a powerful distinction. Forgiveness is a tool meant to narrow the gap of disagreement, but the moment someone aggressively exploits it, boom, there is a clear, logical system to shut them down.
Exactly.
You aren't a doormat. You are a highly regulated vault.
You protect your peace at all costs.
Speaking of protecting your peace, the four-step protocol is great for external enemies. But what happens when the enemy isn't a toxic coworker?
What do you mean?
What happens when the enemy is our own frustration? When we do the right thing, we work hard, and we still fail. How do we handle our own inner world?
Al-Waily actually addresses this by defining true contentment. And he makes sure to clear up a major misconception here.
Which is?
Contentment is not laziness. It is not sitting back, living off an inheritance, or passively expecting the world to hand you a living while you do nothing.
It is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
He says contentment is working incredibly hard, putting in your absolute best physical and mental effort, and then, and this is the brutal part, peacefully accepting the result, whatever it is.
Even if that result is total failure.
Right.
Because if you have done everything in your power, the outcome is often determined by external factors, by the chaotic weather of the world. Interestingly, he notes that society actually owes a debt of support to those who try hard and fail.
That's a great perspective. A functional society doesn't cast those people aside.
Not all.
But the ultimate tool for this inner peace, the absolute masterclass in dealing with the friction of the world, is a concept he calls tagafu.
Tagafu, the art of feigning ignorance.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to be really clear on this because there is a massive psychological difference between actually being ignorant, which is a weakness, and feigning ignorance, which is a massive power play.
It really is.
It is pretending you didn't see the slight, pretending you didn't hear the insult. The author says that some problems actively get worse if you analyze them or acknowledge them.
Yes.
It is often better to just act deaf and let the storm pass. I was thinking about this in a modern context. It is the ultimate strategy for an internet troll or a passive-aggressive comment in a family group chat.
Because what does an internet troll or a passive-aggressive person want? They want a reaction.
Right.
They want to know they affected you. Tagafu starves them of the oxygen of your attention.
The brilliance of solving a problem by simply refusing to validate its existence.
Exactly.
You drop a sarcastic comment in a meeting, I am just going to stare blankly for 2 seconds and then ask about the quarterly numbers. You strip them of all their power.
But Tagafu is a highly selective tool. It requires immense wisdom to know when to use it and when a situation demands action.
Good point.
Al-Waily contrasts this everyday feigned ignorance with a very dramatic, intense story of a leader whose son was killed.
Right. In that situation, the leader absolutely did not feign ignorance. He didn't pretend it didn't happen.
No, the stakes were too high. But look at the mechanics of how he handled it. His son is murdered. The biological, instinctual urge is to explode in rage, grab a weapon, and execute the killer immediately.
Which would trigger the killer's family to seek revenge, and suddenly you have a multi-generational blood feud.
Precisely. It starts a civil war. Instead, this leader exerts terrifying emotional control. He immediately orders his son to be buried.
And then what?
Then, in a move that completely short-circuits everyone's expectations, He pays blood money to the killer's mother
That detail is wild to me. Why would he pay the killer's family?
because it bypasses the biological urge for a blood feud. It adheres to a bizarre but highly effective legal protocol that removes any grievance the killer's family might claim.
Oh, I see.
It isolates the killer from his own tribe's protection. Only after doing that does he detain the killer, ensuring he could be judged calmly by the law, but only after the angry crowd has dispersed.
He controlled the chaos. He didn't let emotion dictate his response to the ultimate tragedy.
Right.
He used a different kind of tagaful. He feigned ignorance of his immediate burning anger to achieve the most stable outcome.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly illustrates the closing quote Al-Waily provides from the classical poet Abu Tamam.
Let's hear it.
The master of his people is not the ignorant one, but the one who feigns ignorance.
That is so powerful. The master isn't the guy yelling the loudest.
It is about constantly calculating the benefit versus the loss of your reaction. Ultimate wisdom isn't fighting every single battle that presents itself.
It is knowing which battles are actually worth your energy and which ones are just noise that you should pretend you didn't hear.
Precisely.
So let's bring all of this together. We have gone on quite a journey through Chapter 12 today. We started by looking at how civilization isn't just the hardware we build, it is the operating system. It is amala, how we treat people.
We saw how a society that enforces the goal of honesty and trust eliminates the massive economic and social tax of friction.
We learned the hard truth, that you cannot cure a disease by infecting yourself with it. You have to fight fire with water, meeting hostility with targeted compassion, forcing the copper to imitate the gold.
But we also established that this does not mean surrendering your boundaries.
Never.
We maintain healthy ambition, tamu, over toxic greed, and we utilize a cold, logical four-step protocol to handle those who try to exploit us.
And finally, we explored the superpower of tagaful, mastering the art of feigning ignorance to protect your own inner peace while reserving your energy for the battles that truly matter.
It is a profound blueprint, and it all hinges on the realization that every single interaction you have today with the barista handing you your coffee, your boss in a tense meeting, or your spouse at the end of a long day is a vital building block of the broader civilization.
You are either adding gold or you are adding copper. Which brings us back to where we started today. Remember that luxurious skyscraper? The penthouse with the beautiful view, but that terrible anxious feeling in your gut.
Hard to forget.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Take a deep breath and think about a specific conflict in your life right now, something that is draining your energy and keeping you up at night. Based on the power of tagaful, what would happen if, starting tomorrow, you simply pretended you didn't notice it? Would the storm eventually pass because you finally stopped feeding it? Or is it one of those rare critical battles that requires you to step up, push emotion aside, and engage the 4 steps? Thank you for joining the deep dive.